Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Gfirli, may God forgive us for the mistakes. My Lord, forgive me. May God forgive us for the mistakes that we are conscious and unconscious of. A'udhu billah shaitanir rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and ignorance and evil. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this lecture. um, I asked myself, where do I want to take the viewership today? And an idea arose to me that I thought, okay, this is interesting to talk about. Like, I would listen to this lecture on like this topic. And it was just this idea that something, I guess, maybe counterintuitive or something that's not natural to the human being, but it's like this view that what if the present is connecting the past and the future? Now, of course, there's, there's a spectrum of ideas here. That means from one angle, you have like, what do you call it? Okay, it should be louder now. So, how do I tell you my fascination? How do I put it into words? I was just like, yo, man, without us, the past would never see the future, and the future would never know its past. The task of human beings alive is so fascinating and it is so extensive that being a modern human being right now is similar to being a being that is responsible for as many dimensions it is conscious of. You know, I I am not saying that God is not love. Many people consider God to be just pure love. And it is true, one of the is the most loving. But regardless of my emotional inclination, I cannot avoid the mere fact that the world can be different than what I want it to be. One thing I've noticed in common between all human beings is that they all put in effort. They all put an effort in what is valuable to them. That's common in the human being. You find something important, you energize towards it. And little do we know that they're like, yo, man, follow your dreams, follow your visions. What they're saying is that your brain is creating its own model to reality, and that model can be very different to reality. You see, like on some level, the journey of humanity is pretty much how far the eyes of the species is open to everything that's it has access to, everything that's in it's present in. To trust the rhythms of the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me open this up. Let's find the high table of the moment. And the high table of the moment is, in some sense, wondering about the micro significance of a macro existence. On some level, human beings have to process reality. We are information processors, okay? And we tend to do this as a character in a story. And when you look at the human design, you're getting some clues about what it has been designed for. Like you see a hammer, it might be a mystery until somebody uses it for its purpose, then it makes sense. Same with a screwdriver or anything. Have we been connecting the past and the future this whole time? Is a question that takes us to the direct experience of our inner lives, of a subjective realm of meaning. Your objective life is in front of your eyes, your subjective life is behind your eyes, your subjective life models the objective life and even updates it. For example, in order for me to give this talk, I had to see something more in the moment, something to talk about. And what I found was that it's the human experience and how the human experience is playing out. That means not only is there like a fascination to like, whoa, look at what the design of the world is. The next thing is like, what is the function of the world? Here, I'll share some notes. I'm writing it in the chat section. So, how could the past, how could the present be connecting the past and the future? It is possible in the domain of human experience. That means first we look at the human. The human is a character to itself in time. We need to look at how the human experiences the present. So, where I'm going with is like the question is being proposed, how could the present be connecting the past and the future? And now we have to compare this to what we know from before about our world, and what the impression we tend to have is that there's something initiated from a starting point, and in its short term it ends, but it keeps passing on. It's kind of like, even though we die, we keep the game going. Okay, like, what's very bizarre for me is that why the earliest human beings procreated. That means even if you're a religious person, right, as a sort of response to being in a simulation. Okay, because it's kind of weird. From one angle, you're inside a simulation, so you need to find the original. The simulation doesn't have value. From another angle, how you treat something to do with how you are treated after. So it's like, from one angle we know it's not the real world, but from another angle we really have to contribute to it before we leave. It's part of the test. So there is a system, existential system. um, the user is subjectively experiencing existence while simultaneously objectively existing. There seems to be an ability that our species has compared to other species, which is very obvious because we're the stranger in the room. Out of all the species on Earth, the sophistication that our species has achieved compared to the others, like, okay, something either gave it a leg up or it was designed for something more. Okay, that means, you like, some imagine there's an inventor. This inventor designs a hammer, designs a screwdriver, I don't know, designs all the imagine this one inventor invented all these things, and then suddenly the inventor was like, I'm going to invent a computer. Now a computer compared to a hammer is very different in regards to the intelligence required to access it, and the access to intelligence it gives you. So do you understand? To me, like, a squirrel is like a hammer, okay? A bee is a pencil, okay? And when I look at the human being, it's like advanced, sophisticated technology that's constantly being comprehended and how to be used. So life takes a completely different vibe, gets a different vibe when you don't doubt how it has been created. Rather, you look at what has been created, ask yourself, out of the infinite viewpoints possible, known and unknown, which one is the correct view? Do you understand? Being an individual in a massive world means you can have endless individual associations with different parts of it. And what we see that is happening around the world, like I talk about how nationalism is the old world. It's like, how do I tell you? It's like you outgrow a t-shirt, and the species has outgrown its ideological costume games. In the present, the experience is very different. That means, even if you tell me, like, all right, man, what did you do exactly yesterday? I can recall it, but its experiential intensity can never be as equivalent as how it was happening for the first time. You understand? A memory cannot be new, okay? In some sense, just by definition of it, right? So reality is what's changing. So what you're looking at is like this brain is processing information. It does it through a sort of neural patterns, okay? And what that means is the brain is taking shape in accordance to how it interacts with shape. And then, how would I tell you? You have a self that's like biologically chilling right now here, but you also have this side to you that is kind of watching your thoughts and can choose to animate as them. I believe this. You could be anybody denying it. I know that the reason the human being feels an imposter syndrome is because it knows it's simulated. Do you understand what that means? That means if you, when you give, like, let's say you give your girlfriend like a plastic flower, like her eyes will tell you it's not as valuable as the real one. You know, it's like, yo, I couldn't get you flowers, but here's a printed page of flowers, of a garden. Google Images saved JPEG of a garden, and then the company with the bouquet comes. But anyways, whatever I'm what I'm trying to tell you here is that I am saying, my dear species, please, please, my fellow species, ask yourself if you're full of shit. Honestly, a person has to anchor, their egoic boat, whatever they're navigating as. To me, I'm a character in a story. Let me tell you this: if somebody comes up to in front of me and says, "Hey man, who are you?" and I tell them a story and they're like, "Oh, okay, I think I know now," I'll be like, you freaking, you naive candle flame in the wind. Do you know how mad you have to be to call someone like a candle flame in the wind? All right, let me see where I can take this. So, how am I entering the geometry of the idea? Well, the idea is the title. The title is asking a question, trying to suggest a new subjective archetypal position of the individual, that we're like, yo, man, we owe everything to the past, and we're living for the future, and the person has to somehow, excuse me, give an F, yeah, like, care for this world. I want you to imagine back in the day, your ancestors, they were like, yo, man, there's like empires, but there's the human empire, and humanity, this empire shall go forth. Like, you understand? People live for that which is subconsciously beyond them. How do we have so many people living for God? How do we have so many people around the world that have so many followers? Do you understand? Because they take something from you so that you will need them. Do you understand? That's the kind of the way the world has been designed. Do you understand? Where I had to make a decision and I was like, it's a gift. It's free. Just give it to the world before you leave. That is like the major purpose. Because if you ask me what is my purpose as a being, I have four answers to you, and the answers, like concentric circles, all are like technically inside one answer. If you ask me what is your purpose in this life, I imagine your drill sergeant shouting at me like as a soldier. I would say, in some sense, to become conscious of the most advanced self. That's one of my purposes in this life. If you ask me again the question, what is your purpose in this life? I'll give you the second answer. It is to become conscious of the most advanced expression of my species. And if you ask me again, what is your purpose in this life? to become conscious of the most advanced world. If you ask me again, what is your purpose in this life? To become conscious of the most advanced being. These are the four purposes. Like if somebody, at least to my consciousness, they ask me like, why are you still like hanging out on earth? I'll be like, I still need to see my most advanced self, the most advanced self. I need to see the most advanced expression of my species, and I need to see the most advanced relationship of myself and my species with my world, and I need to see the most advanced relationship. Like these are things I need to experience. I need to experience the most advanced relationship with the original source point of this being, of this simulation. Now imagine if you ask me like, all right, man, what's your score? Like how have you done so far? Have you reached these purposes? And you may think because I'm lingering around I haven't, but in my inner realms I have. That means if that was my to-do list in life, those four things to be conscious of: the most advanced self, the most advanced species, the most advanced world, the most advanced system admin, relationship with the system admin. I would tell you in my inner life, yes, I have perceived my most advanced self. In behind my eyes, if you ask me, have you seen the most advanced state of your species? I would be like, I have seen an advanced probability. I don't know if it's the most advanced, but yes, in my inner realms I have seen, I have legit felt it. You don't understand what it means to be a visual thinker. To be a visual thinker means you have a cinematic experience of your inner realm, your inner life. Do you know what that means? That means if I'm looking at my car right now, and if I want to think about what my car is going to look like in the future, I'm already experiencing, like, that my fear of heights by having the car be 100 meters above the air. Like, I can visualize that. Do you understand? Sorry, not fear of heights. I have a discomfort with immeasurable, like uncalculated moments. I think we all do. But you learn to love novelty. You learn to love your world while it's here, while you're here. Care for it, to honor it. They ask you who you are. Like, do you know what I mean? Right now, the species, like if somebody, let's say a human being is walking down the street, and as they're passing by the bus stop, they see three other human beings talk like so bad about the species. It's like we're the worst species, the most dangerous animal. We've done this and that. How look at how many people and beings, human beings, have destroyed compared to this, right? And I would be like, if you don't get offended, you haven't understood the value of your species. And you might be like, what is the answer to these four questions? You know, these four things on your list. And I'll be like, behind my eyes, the most advanced self is not a self is calculated, it's an unimaginable self. The most advanced state of many things in reality is the unimaginable, because as you get closer, as the simulated gets closer to the original, there is only the original. How do I say it? It's about how we're experiencing time, but time needs a space to exist, so that existence can't be in time. It's kind of like taking things further. If you believe you're in a world, you're like, where is my world? If you consider a higher power, your intelligence might take you to a point where you're like, what is the higher power? Or, you know, what can it be? And the answer to that is very difficult, because like if you put a glove on your hand and you move your hand and people are like, yo, that glove is moving, like it might be difficult for them to tell that there's an intelligence beyond the glove moving the glove. Us, we're in existence, there's an intelligence moving the existence, but it's very hard to say if the surface of reality is like a glove, because the relationship that the higher power has with the lower power is not limited to the world, but the relationship the lower power has with the higher power is limited in the world for now. And it's your relationship with your reality. For me, what was very fascinating, in holy books, in the Holy Quran, it's as if God created the earth for man, and there's provisions there on earth for him. But it's kind of like God situated the world in accordance to the soul, to the individual. So it's kind of like coach of being like, could it be that right now we are a soul that has been given a world, but prior to being given a world, it's as if the soul is not in how do I say it, is not a worldly being. So what I'm saying is that there's a strange neutrality, where the closest we can get to is that there's an unknown viewer who noticing how you're being an object, and also noticing the different subjects you have. And on some level, just like every street smart person knows, reality is about looking at it from different angles, and the angles could be all on like one elevation, or it could be micro and macro. You understand? I could look at myself and render any sort of value. I could be like, right now I'm valueless, or I could suddenly think I'm valuable, or I could think that I'm significant or not significant. But whatever I do is like my own show for myself. When I notice that I've been putting on my show, right, as a character in a story, in an ideological, as in a, how do I say it, cultural programs, right? So it's that moment where it's as if I begin to realize that maybe if I stop acting like I am the simulated, I may notice the original. Now, I had that attitude. It took me down a spiritual rabbit hole, right? Like a tunnel, like Alice in the Wonderland style. Like it was weird, right? It wasn't weird, but spirituality did not bring me peace. It expanded my awareness. It made me realize there's moderators here aside from the system admin, but the peace only comes when the higher power's mercy is enabled. And what that means is, you right now don't just have a relationship with yourself, you don't have a relationship with others, and even the legacy of the human species. And let's say you might have a relationship with the world as well right now, but to have a relationship with a higher power means that the final decision is not in accordance to your value theory as a being. Do you know what it is? It's kind of like a student. Okay, it's kind of like, imagine a kid in high school suddenly says, "Yo, man, high school is the end of the world." And the kid is in like the counselor's office in high school, and the counselor is like, "Yo, kid, what do you mean it's the end of the world? The high school is not the end of the world. After this, you have university to go to." And the kid's like, "I don't believe in university. I just believe there's this building right here, and this is the only school that's real for me." And you'll be like, buddy, when will you realize sometimes you must lift your own opinions from your eyes that are covering your eyes? So as a human being, I wasn't like this always, but a part of me is too fascinated by what this real unknown event is than to just be satisfied by my own storytelling excellence. Do you know how many human beings I've seen tell different stories about themselves? Every person I have met, it's as if they're performing, but simultaneously, the awareness to the presence of being is a decision-making force. Do you understand? Like sometimes I wonder, why is consciousness necessary? Why couldn't everything in life be automated? Why did God make us notice suffering? Why did God make us notice our mortality? Why are we aware of a system that has negative and positive? Why wasn't everything just positive? And you want to know the answer to that? Because all God had already created angels and I already created demons. The good and the duality was stationed prior to man's arrival. But then God came, the system admin created a type of user that it told all its creation to bow to. It created a user with system admin privileges. That is what is special about you. If we were all a bunch of squirrels, don't like, trust me, I wouldn't be communicating to you, right, and talking about our future. We'd all just be jumping from different branches to branch to branch. Do you know? But we are humans. With the human comes in faculties. With these faculties come the responsibility. That means, think of it this way: you have an immediate responsibility to the administrator of this world. That means this world has an owner. You gotta establish a relationship with the owner. But the owner is not man-made, so it's very difficult to, in some sense, ask yourself, how can a higher being that is beyond any worldly form, you know, how can I establish a relationship with such a being? And the honest answer is, you cannot establish the relationship, in the sense that the only way you can is just noticing the higher power and accepting it. But if you don't even accept that, you still have responsibilities of a collective nature. You understand? I'm like that human being in history who's like, wait a minute, you know, it's very obvious to me that everybody is storytelling here. And what seems to be knowledge are the stories that are more accurately relatable and evident in reality. So, do you understand what's going on? It's a bunch of, think of it this way, a bunch of creatures on a planet that have an ability to notice how they're separate from the planet, have an ability to notice how they're separate from each other, right? And have an ability to notice that it's all in separately with an intelligence separate to them, beyond them, is happening. At this point, it doesn't still mean transcendental, but still, it's like some nature's intelligence. Like if you were to compare intelligence of a world, of a planet, to an intelligence of a human, it would be a completely different processing power. For me, I often wonder, when I was younger, reality was a lot in my hands. But right now, it's not in my hands. That means if somebody was like, hey, man, take responsibility for your world. And I'm like, I have behind my eyes. And then they're like, okay, now the only thing's left to take responsibility in front of your eyes. But there is taking responsibility in front of your eyes doesn't mean you can be responsible for it. Why? Because there is a system admin. We're in the passenger seat when it comes to the higher power. Even though we think we're driving, it is really our story. The most advanced self. Imagine if you became your most advanced self right now. You would look around and be like, yo, man, the world isn't advanced. So, what's the point of being an advanced self in an unadvanced world? Excuse me, not unadvanced world, unadvanced civilization. You know, in 2025, it's very interesting. If people in the future are like Mr. Within, why didn't you do more? And I'd be like, guys, you don't know the vibe. Everybody was in their own world, climbing their endless to-do list, and then there were rare moments where the human being could just for a second pause in the movement of civilization and just look at what it is. Humanity has to ask itself, like every human being on this earth has to ask themselves, like think about it. You've so simply accepted that you and your everybody else are on the same planet. You so simply have accepted that everybody on this planet needs oxygen to breathe. You so simply have accepted that we all have this like similar skeletal structure, do you know design, like layout. Many people have accepted many things, about reality collectively. But the idea here now is, if you could do something better and you knew it and you didn't do it, how would you feel? If every human being right now could shift the protocol of how they're valuing the human being. Right now in 2025, people still believe they're smart and stupid rather than realizing there is an original, uh, imagine there's an original truth code to reality, right? And everybody is kind of simulating their way to getting through. It is the story that is active in the present that is holding the significance of time. It means that meaning is being put into reality. So we have made change equal time. And I sometimes see the past, present, and future as people, right? Imagine three people were hanging out, right? And then, they ask one of them, hey, man, what's your name? Who are you? And the person's like, I'm the past. I'm everything that's happened before. And they ask the other person, who are you? And the other person's like, yo, man, I'm the present. I'm everything that's happened in the past plus what's happening now. Sorry, no. The present just says I'm everything that's happening now, right? And then they ask the third person, who are you? And the third person says, I am everything that will happen. And can you imagine the past having a conversation with the present, and the past and the present having a conversation with the future? That means, how would my ancestors feel about my future? And how do I feel about the future now? And how does the future feel about us if it was here? Do you know, sometimes I have this playful thing in my mind where I just imagine, I don't know exactly, but I just imagine what my ancestors look like, do you know? And I just imagine if I had appeared in front of them and they're like, "Who are you?" And I'll be like, "I'm from, like, I don't know, like 8 years in the future." And they'll be like, "No way, 80 years in the future. It's just their clothing has improved." You know, I'll be embarrassed if I go back to my ancestors now. They'll be like, "Have you ever held a sword before?" I'll be like, "I've held a pencil before. Like, does that count?" Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, to bring this to some conclusion, see, pretty much we're wondering, this episode is just looking at how the experience of time is happening for the person. It was trying to open the playful notion that we see the relationship past, present, future as if it's an arrow going towards the future. But if we separated these three, we're going to notice we technically have three versions of civilization. If I take a snapshot of the past, a snapshot of, and then in the future they take a snapshot of what it looks like, it would be as if three different ways. So in the same way, believe it or not, that we have so many different kinds of human beings and has so many different kinds of individual expression due to each's unique DNA and conditioning, unique conditioning. It's like, in the same way that there could be so many different kinds of people, similarly there could be so many different types of civilization. Like in my sci-fi, for example, just to give you a glimpse, I wrote about a civilization where humanity had managed a way to create giant trees, giant, like skyscraper size, and they had created all these giant trees that were acting as pillars that in some sense cities were built on top. Do you know? And it would be as if it would not be a tree house anymore, it would be a tree house. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, wonder about time, folks. Wonder about why you have shackled a chunk of metal to your wrist. Okay? And wonder about how your left shoulder is going to be slightly lower than your right. And also wonder about what if our major significance and greatest contribution to the legacy of our species and also to the great narrative of history is that we were the ones that saw the past and notes and look and stared into the future and decided in accordance to now. Do you understand? That means all we can do as people who will one day be the people of the past is to just give. Do you know, they say they have this view, offer, they like, how do I say it? It's like the view of a person like giving their life for something, right? But in some strange way, you are giving your life for life. Be alive, you're giving your life. It's as if the cost of life is death. The cost of, you know, do you know what I mean? That means it's like, it's obvious by the nature of how we exit the system that it's not only about what we did in the system. Because if this reality, if this was the main world, from different viewpoints, it's like there could have been no death. And from another view, there could have been no need for consciousness. It could have all just went on unconsciously happening. So the emergence of consciousness has made everything supremely significant, because what consciousness is the ability to notice a greater dimension. It's like, it's very difficult to say, if you notice your inner world, are you really in it? That means if there's a you that is aware, you're not just like the story you tell me about yourself, and you're not just your body. Do you understand what I mean? It's like reality is bizarre. We have people fighting over, is this real or not? At the same time, it's like our attention is where the value emerges. Anyways, thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. A'udhu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one, from ignorance, unnecessary ignorance. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May the most advanced guide us in the most advanced way. Ultimately, it's like an original awareness is returning to its original place. For a religious person, you're not just in a world where there is God, you're also going to meet that power. So it's kind of like being like, how does a simulated being prepare itself in a simulation to meet the original power afterwards, after the simulation? Well, guess what? To be aware of the original power while in the simulation is a good starting point. Anyways, thank you for listening. La ilaha illallah. There's no God, but admin is beyond anything in the world. Is not limited to anything in the world. All right, have a good day, guys. Thank you.